Our theme this year is the heart of man plans his way, but the Lord establishes his steps. Proverbs 16:9. And we're talking about our cycle of loving neighbors, moving them to loving God, getting them to worship, moving them to serving others. And then repeat that cycle, and you keep that going. This is, once you start this cycle, there's a lot of momentum, and that momentum is really hard to break. I like progress. How many of you like to see progress? All right, most of us. I like projects because projects, you usually start on something. You kind of have a vision for what's going to happen, and then you jump right in, you do your thing, and then you step back and you're like, wow, look what we accomplished. Yesterday was one of those days. I was super excited to see that we had a big crew. A little bit bigger crew than actually what I expected. So it was nice that we had so many volunteers. We showed up and you know, both inside and out, things kind of haven't been looking the greatest. But that was something that we kind of had a plan. And we had Eric, who oversaw the outside crew, and then Aaron oversaw the inside crew. They both had a list of things that they wanted accomplished. And once everybody kind of figured out what they were doing, they just jumped right in and they started doing it. I think it's really cool because it shows that, one, we can't do things by ourselves. We're fooling ourselves if we think we can do things by ourselves. Number two, I think it shows and demonstrates that when people come together, we can accomplish really great things in a really short amount of time. We thought this was going to take all day. We planned from 9 to 4. Pretty much by noon, we were done for the day. So I thought that was really cool, and I like progress. So with that said, I'm super proud and encouraged by this congregation, and just thinking in the future and thinking about where we begin right now. I think it's really exciting. Today we have a meeting right after worship with our ministry groups, and we're going to talk about how we all come together as a body and include other people. How do we grab people who might not really know what their purpose is, or where they belong? How do we grab those people and start motivating them and encouraging them to serve in different ways? There's plenty of room for everybody here, so regardless of age, there's plenty to do. Today we're going to continue talking about prayer, and it's an interesting passage. I was really wrestling with what passage to go over today, and I kept coming back to the Lord's Prayer because it's such a powerful, well-known prayer, and it's so short. It's known for its brevity. Jesus intentionally tells people, don't pray like the Gentiles who go out and they stand in the street corners and they just talk and talk and talk and talk. Don't pray like that. Instead, go in the privacy of your home and then pray like this. And then he gives a demonstration of a prayer. I'm really drawn to that because, and I got to preface this by saying I'm really kind of torn with the internet and all the things that we see. And, there's so much good and bad. And I tend to look for the good and shy away from the bad. There's plenty bad out there. But I try to look for the good and look at what people are doing and how they're using the internet to influence other people in a good way, in a positive way. And with that said, we really do have a big movement of social media influencers. And I'm not for or against it. It's not my thing. I'm not good at it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to dedicate time to being an influencer on social media. But if you guys were to guess how much the top earners on Instagram make, what would be a guess? Just throw out per post. Just throw numbers out. What do you think are some of the top numbers, actual dollar amounts for top posts? Instagram, 2022, this year. Throw some numbers out. What do you think would be worth putting a post on social media? How much? $1 million. Okay. Any other guesses? $20. Not what it's worth. What people actually get paid. So we have $1 million, $1 million, $20, $200,000. Any other guesses? 5,000. That's a good guess. All right. What's that? $1 billion. Whoo! Talk about inflation. All right. Here are the top earners on Instagram. Cristiano Ronaldo, soccer player, ranks number 1, which kind of surprised me. But per post, now keep in mind, we live in a free country, more or less. You can post as many posts as you want in a day. He is making $1,604,000 per post. Not bad for a minute's work. Number 2 is Dwayne "The Rock." He makes $1,523,000 per post, and that's just on Instagram. Ariana Grande, number 3. She's banking $1,510,000 per post. You were close. I think you win the award for closest guess. Kylie Jenner, she ranks number 4. She's making $1,494,000 per post. Number 5 is Selena Gomez, $1,468,000 per post. And then Kim Kardashian, number 6, $1,419,000 per post. I bring this up because, especially since COVID, a lot of people kind of jumped onto the social media influencer wagon, and which is fine. Again, I'm not for or against it. I don't think there's anything immoral of making your money that way. There are people who make a nice profession doing that. Here's where I'm torn. I watch a lot of Instagram Reels and TikToks of Christian influencers. And they do like this, the social experiments, and like there's a lot of ones with homeless, and they'll go in and, Jimmy Darts is probably my favorite right now, and he's so cool and so laid back, and he's like, he'll ask somebody to do something for him, and based on what his followers ask. So it'll be like, knock on somebody's door and ask for a cup of water, or ask to use their shower. And, like some of the things are kind of ridiculous, but he'll go and he'll do it. And the first person to show kindness, he'll give them $500. And, kind of a cool thing. I love watching them. I love the idea behind them. I love that genuinely poor people are being helped. Jimmy Darts is one of the coolest because a lot of the things that he does is long-term. So he'll help people get out of homelessness by using his platform. I think that's really cool. But here's the other side of that, is that some of these influencers, I don't think Jimmy Darts is there yet, and hopefully he never gets there, but some of the social media influencers, the Christian ones, are using that fame to really get more famous and get a lot of attention. And so they're kind of pushing the envelope, and I've noticed that a lot of them are kind of getting themselves into trouble by doing things that are kind of pushing that line a little bit too far to where they offend people or hurt people or whatever. And so that's where I'm kind of torn on that, because as Christians, I'm a firm believer in not really letting your right hand know what your left hand's doing and vice versa. Just kind of doing things for people for the sake of doing them. And so I see both sides of the social media influencer side. Like I think it's really cool on the one hand, but on the other hand, it's not really the world's business, and there's kind of that invasive nature too, where people are being filmed at their lowest moments. And I watch that, and part of me feels really empathetic towards the homeless people who are being exposed so publicly when they didn't really ask to be. Yeah, they're being helped, but their face is also out there for the world to see. And maybe they didn't really ask for that. So all that leads into what Jesus is talking about prayer, because I'm a firm believer, especially in recent weeks, that prayer really, really works. That if we believe that God is going to answer the prayers, that we ought to stop being so timid. And I'm preaching to myself here. We need to stop being so timid in what we ask for and how much we ask for from God. I tend to lean very conservative in my prayers, and I'll be like, I don't want to ask too much from God, so I'm going to pray kind of a toned down prayer. right? And I don't know if anybody relates with that. I'm not really here to ask you guys personal questions about your prayer life. I'm telling you, I really struggle with that. And I think that's to our detriment, because I really believe God genuinely answers these huge prayers if we just ask. And so this is in the context of the Sermon on the Mount. And Jacob read some of this for us this morning. I'm going to expand this to the full part of this whole section here. Here's what Jesus said. He's talking to his disciples, and he said, when you pray, you must not be like the hypocrites. Now, hypocrites was a term that was used. That's what actors were called in the first century. They were called hypocrites, and it meant a mask changer. So the hypocrites would go out on the stage, they would perform, they would come back, and they would switch masks and then go back out as a different character. So that's what a hypocrite was. So he said, when you pray, you must not be like the hypocrites, for they love to stand and pray in the synagogues and at the street corners, that they may be seen by others. And that's what I was talking about with the social media influencers. They're doing this to make a living, and the more they push that envelope, the more money they make. And that's where I kind of have a little bit of a problem with doing things for other people when that's how you make your living. And because eventually you kind of exploit people for that. So Jesus is saying, like, don't be like the hypocrites. They love to stand and pray in the synagogues, at the street corners, that they may be seen by others. Truly, I say to you, they have received their reward. And I don't think Jesus is being sarcastic here. I think they genuinely receive their reward when they pray, even though they do it kind of for the showboaty thing. I think they're still receiving a reward. But he says this, but when you pray, go into your room and shut the door and pray to your Father who is in secret. And your Father who sees in secret will reward you. Now, you might not get the attention that the so-called hypocrites get when they're praying publicly and on the street corners, and people know, like, this is kind of the person who prays because he's always on the corner, and I know I can go to him and I can ask for prayer and he's going to pray. Jesus is saying, like, people may not know that you're that go-to person for prayer, but you will receive a reward also. He says, when you pray, do not heap up empty phrases as the Gentiles do, for they think that they will be heard for their many words. Do not be like them, for your Father knows what you need before you ask him. And I'll confess too, sometimes when I pray, especially out loud, I kind of struggle with that. Like, I feel like prayers need to, like, we got to get our bang for our buck for our prayers. When you're praying before people, you want to make sure that it's a nice, long prayer, not long, but not too short. You don't want to be like, Dave, what's your prayer for food? The super short prayer for food, bless this mess, amen, kind of thing. You don't want to pray too short, so you want to pray a little bit longer, and we end up kind of fluffing that prayer a little bit. And Jesus is saying, don't be like that. God knows what you're going to ask before you pray it, so the point in prayer is to pray it and believe that you've received it. So he says, pray then like this. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we have also forgiven our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. What's interesting is he doesn't say amen. He just ends it. He just like abruptly ends it. Lead us not into temptation, deliver us from evil. Then he says, for if you forgive others their trespasses, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you do not forgive others their trespasses, neither will your Father forgive your trespasses. And this whole Sermon on the Mount, I love it because there's kind of this progression, and he's talking about, just going back, retaliation. Backing up a little bit. Anger, You've heard that it was said, these things. You've heard that it's said, don't murder. Whoever murders will be liable to judgment. But I'm telling you, don't even be angry. Don't be angry with your brother. It talks about lust. He talks about divorce. He talks about oaths, letting your yes be yes and your no be no. Retaliation. Don't retaliate against people who've wronged you. Love for your enemies. Giving to the needy. And then he goes into the Lord's Prayer. Everything he's saying is about shaking hands with people and living like a civilized people. Being kind to people. Not showboating, not going out and using a lot of words, and not demonstrating your love for God and your love for others by showing people, I'm going to show the world how much I love people. Jesus is like, no, that's like a big fat no. You want to love people? Just love them. You want to be kind to people? Just be kind to them. You want to be nice? Don't retaliate. You want to pray for people? Great. Go in your closet and pray. God already knows what you're going to ask anyway, so why do you need to do it so publicly? Then he talks about fasting, laying up treasures in heaven. Don't store up all these things on earth, but lay up your treasures in heaven. He's talking about doing kind things for people. Don't be anxious about tomorrow. Judging others. I love this one. It's not saying don't ever judge people, but I think a modern translation, there's unfortunate names. You ever notice there are unfortunate names? Karen is such an unfortunate name today. It's terrible. And he's saying that you're basically saying don't be a Karen. Don't freak out on people when you have all your own garbage that you need to deal with. Judge not that you be judged, for with the judgment that you pronounce will be judged, and the measure you use will be measured back to you. Why do you see the speck that's in your brother's eye, but do not notice the log that's in your own eye? Or how can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, when there's the log in your own eye? You hypocrite. He uses this word over and over and over. Don't be a mask changer. Well, I'm going to show them how much I'm offended and how much their actions offend my Christian walk that I'm trying to preserve so purely. Jesus is saying, quit being a hypocrite. You have your own garbage going on. Don't be pointing the finger at people constantly saying how terrible they are. He says, first take the log out of your own eye, and then you'll be able to see clearly to take the speck out of your brother's eye. Then he goes on, and this is what I'll end with. I love this passage, and this is all tied together. He's talking about the big prayer, the big ask. He says, ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and it will be open to you. For everyone who asks receives, and the one who seeks finds, and to the one who knocks it will be opened. Or to which one of you, if his son asks for bread, will give him a stone? Or if he asks for a fish, will give him a serpent? In other words, they're not going to give these ridiculous gifts. Your neighbor's not going to ask for bread, and you're like, here's this stone. It makes no sense. You're not going to offend somebody. You're going to give somebody bread. If they're hungry and they knock on your door, you're going to feed them. So it says, if you then, who are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father who is in heaven give good things to those who ask him? It's this big ask. Stop being afraid to ask God for big things. That's where I get excited about this congregation. It's where I get excited about you and everything that we have to offer. That we have to offer each other, that we have to offer our neighbors, that we have to offer this community. And let me tell you, I'm going to say this a million times until I'm blue in the face. Small churches don't determine the fate of your church. Small churches don't mean, well, we don't have resources, and so we're so limited in what we can do. I've never believed that. I think that's a flat-out lie. I think small churches, small groups of people have incredible power to influence other people and to change people's lives. I think we have incredible potential to break into the lives of hurting people, and there are a lot of hurting people. We have so much potential to break into their hearts and their lives and to bring them into a community of believers where we fall at the feet of our Father and we keep asking Him for more. We've got to stop being cautious with our prayers and ask God for big things.